Hi, friends.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to The Wander Guys. We're glad you're here with us.
Today, we're going to do a video on our move, the big move.
And that was, the private jet was for our dog.
Yes.
That was the best way, fastest way, best for him, so he didn't have to be in a cage. To get him overseas was to put him on a private jet, as expensive as that was, which it was.
I will give them a plug right now. It's called K9 Jets, and we'll put them in the description as well. They were amazing from beginning to finish. It was $9,000 was what it cost, and that was for me and for Rhett. And he got to sit in a seat next to me. We had leather reclining chairs. There was only, I think, 8 people total on the flight, 6 other dogs.
And you could only take one bag.
Yes. It was a great flight. He did not enjoy it as much as I did, but it was quiet. There were a few issues with dogs barking at other dogs, but it was very quickly taken care of and had the most amazing journey. So if you do need to get your dog over and you're having a hard time, there are a few options. There's the Queen Mary 2.
It's the only ship that goes international.
And it's only the ship that I believe goes out of New York. They have Queen Mary goes out of 2 different locations. You'll have to look it up. There's only one that has the kennels that allows dogs on it. The second trip that they take, they don't allow dogs. So there was that. There was also the option of putting him under the plane, which was not an option for us. For one thing, it was going to cost $4,000 to $5,000 for that. But also, again, I don't know where he is.
He's under the table.
He is a Chihuahua Shepherd mix, so he has extreme anxiety. Yeah. And we were worried that putting him under a plane would destroy him and his personality would never be the same. So we decided, yes, it was a lot of money, but for us, it was right because we felt comfortable, that's our baby. So we would do whatever we had to, and we did. So
I, on the other hand, got all the other bags and had to go alone to the airport.
Only 3.
No, it was 4. I had 4 bags.
Well, you have your carry-on. Okay.
Yeah, I had 4 bags, and the weight has to be just right in them too. So they were like, "Oh, you should just go buy another bag and fill it with half of these things from all your bags because some of the bags were overweight." So I'm frugal, and we had already spent a fortune on this jet, and I was like, no. I sat there in the back of the check-in of the airport and reallocated, I'm stuffing umbrellas and sweaters in from this bag to that bag. And I'm like, no, I'm going to make this work. And I took a few trips back and forth and weighed them on the scale at the end. And I thought security was going to come arrest me because I'm on the floor with just stuff and suitcases, and then I keep running back, and I'm sweating. I'm running back to the weight thing, and I'm weighing it. I'm like, okay, I still have a few more pounds. The lady was nice, the little security woman, and she was talking to me, but I felt like a mess and a crazy
we weren't
person.
doing YouTube yet because I would have totally had something.
Oh my God! And I'm alone, I'm all by myself. You're not there, and usually you watch out for me and make suggestions, and we work well together. And I had to do it all by myself. But, I got it all sorted, and the guy was actually quite impressed that I was able to do it without buying another bag. I was like, I'm not buying another bag. That's not happening. I'm not going to spend another $200 or $300. Yeah. I mean, look, this move has just been cost after cost after cost, and it's fine. But every moment, every corner you turn is you're going to have to pay for the U-Haul. Then you're going to have to pay to store the U-Haul. Then you're going to have to pay the full fee of shipping of the U-Haul. There's the short-term rental that we got because we sold the house and it was fairly fast when we had to move out. But we still had Scarlett, and we knew she couldn't make the journey with us. That's true. We weren't going to just put her down because. So we waited and saw how things went with her health. And luckily, unluckily, she did not do well for too much longer. So for expediency, it was okay, but obviously I would rather have her with us.
So we tried to hold on as long as we could, but we also knew it was going to be a short-term thing. So we decided to get a rental house and see how that all played out. Plus, there were other factors. We had jobs at the time. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure what we were going to do with the jobs. We both knew our jobs would not allow us to transfer overseas because we had asked them. So it really at that time became, it's just time.
And then for the research that we had already done, we were working our jobs, packing this house, getting it ready to go, doing whatever needed to be done to it. So we moved into this short-term rental. We still hadn't fully figured out where we were going and how it was all going to work. Yeah. So we knew we needed, a little extra time to figure that out. So that was what the short-term rental, was all for. Yeah. It was for Scarlett and to figure out our process. And that's what we wound up doing was just figuring out what country should we go to? We had to narrow it down. We had to look, for us, factors of, do they have gay marriage? Is that legal there? Some countries it's not. Surprisingly, you'd be surprised if you started looking of where it's legal and where it's not, or how long it's been legal, or how friendly the country is to gay people. Those are factors for us. Also, can we work there? We're not independently wealthy. We had a little money from the sale of the house and everything, but we can't just exist forever with no income. So some countries that we had on our list that were great options for us, like Spain, we didn't have a way that we knew or that we could find to work there. Yeah. And so we had to cross it off the list. Portugal was also on the list. Great. It met a lot of our needs.
It did.
But it was very far away.
It was very far. And the whole purpose, well, not the whole purpose, but the purpose that we decided on once we were deciding to move was we wanted to do this YouTube channel. We wanted to travel all of the EU and really the world, not even just the EU, but we wanted to travel the world. And so we looked at Portugal, and it was, I want to say it was like 14 to 16 hours train journey just to like France, or maybe that was Belgium. But it was so far that it was not plausible, especially with Rhett, because we would have to be boarding him for long periods of time. We could never take him with us because nothing was accessible by train or by car, really. You had to fly, and he can't fly, obviously. So yeah, we had to scratch Portugal off, even though we were excited about it. But we also wanted a bigger city, and that was more of a laid-back beach type feel, which JR loves, but I do not so much.
There were a couple of large city options, but maybe not as much as some other countries have. Malta was on the list briefly, but it's an island. We didn't want to be, outside of
not enough culture for us.
Well, we don't know. We've never been there. We'll go there one day and see if we would have liked it. But, I don't like not being able to take a train or drive quickly to other places. So we scratched that one off the list. I think Germany was a good option. I don't fully remember why it didn't work for us. I think
it was because they want high-skilled workers in Germany. And mind you, I'm going to take a second to say this right now, that if any of your experience is different than ours, or you find that the rules aren't what we said, this is just what we researched and what we found. This is not official advice. This is just...
And we're not experts, so...
This is what we, after hours and hours and hours of researching, this is what we have found. So, but anyway, Germany wanted high-skilled workers under the age of 30, I believe it was. It might even have been
40.
Maybe 40. No, I think it was 30. And I was like, okay, well, neither of us are under 30. First of all, they would still, there was no like age requirement that you had to, it's just what they were preferring. But after looking at it, I was like, we would have to get a job there, and we didn't want to do that. Like, that was not in our plan to work full-time jobs and, go back to a 9-to-5 lifestyle. We were moving to a new place, and we were looking for different avenues.
Right. We wound up settling on Belgium.
Yes.
And we thought, from what we had researched, that was going to work for us. We had a way to do it where we could...
Big city.
What was the city that we were going to move to?
Not Antwerp.
No.
Brussels.
That's right.
Yes, Brussels. We had decided on Brussels. It was a big city. They spoke English there fluently.
And very central for traveling. You could travel to all sorts of places really fast.
The weather was pretty much just like it was in Georgia.
Similar.
Like very, very close. And so we decided Belgium was the place for us.
And we really thought that was going to be where we were going to move. Based on what we had researched, it seemed like it fit, and we could work there and do our own thing. So we wound up engaging a lawyer who specialized in expat law. And we met with her after we had moved into the short-term rental. And she was great. Nice. Yeah, very nice. But in the end, it wound up that our circumstances, it didn't quite fit what we wanted. Yeah. The UK wasn't quite an option. They're not part of the EU. So if we wanted to travel a lot, and
London
they were
is
strict.
My favorite place. Like I would have loved to live in London.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, they were also same thing with the jobs.
Very strict.
You had to basically get a job before you moved there, is what it was, and we weren't looking for that.
Right. We wanted to take time off at least, even if one of us or whatever had to get a job. We didn't want to have to do that right away, and certainly not before we moved there. That would just be even more stress.
Our plan was always to take 1 to 2 years off, figure out what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go, and then from there start the next chapter. We got a little nervous because Belgium wasn't going to work, and
maybe Portugal we'd wind up having to go back to, even though it was not ideal for us.
And also another reason we were nervous though is we had already moved out of the house at this point.
Right.
So we're in a rental house with our dogs and our 4 suitcases of stuff.
Right. And everything else is packed and gone. It's in storage.
And we're like, well, where do we go? Like, this was our plan. What do we do now?
Right. So I think the same expat lady, we asked her, what about the Netherlands? Do you know anything about the Netherlands? We had looked into it a little bit, but not, super specifically. Right. And she gave us a little bit of information, and we contacted another expat lawyer there.
Well, she told us about the DAFT visa, which we will go into in other videos. It's the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. And it's basically a visa where if you're starting your own company, that you can move to this country to start your company fresh. And there's no real regulations besides the fact that you can't work a job. You can only work for your own company.
There are some regulations.
Well, I mean, that is the biggest regulation, though, of the DAFT visa is I can never get a job. Like, I can't go to Albert Heijn and become a bagger because I need some cash. Like,
that's a grocery store.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Albert Heijn is a grocery store here in Amsterdam.
They think you're going to some man named Albert Heijn.
So yeah, we just knew once she told us about the DAFT that it sounded good. Did she give us the lawyer's name?
No. We had looked, and we looked up a lot of reviews, a lot of different places, and he had the best reviews, and
oh yes,
that's who we wound up with. So so in the end, after all of our planning and research and plans, everything wound up changing anyway.
It did at the very last minute too.
Right, and that was only like a month before we left the U.S. Where we just totally changed countries of where we were going to spend our future.
It was so soon. For people to understand the reality of it is, I think it was 3 or 4 days before my last day with my job. And we did a big group meeting. And this one woman who had originally been from Belgium was like, well, why did you choose Belgium? And I was like, well, it just works for us. So then 2 days later, I think, was when we discovered it didn't. And I'm like, I'm quitting my job in 2 days. And I literally don't even know what country I'm moving to at this point. Like, I have no idea where I'm going to go.
But it all worked out, and it's just step by step. You do as much research as you obviously can and do the best you can with what you have. But in the end, you take it step by step by step, and you fill out this form, and you make this phone call, and you send this email, and you just keep doing that. And we are still doing it. We are not even fully settled yet. But that's what you have to do is you just keep getting to the next step and the next stage of I have to do this form, and then I have to send an email, and then I have to make a phone call, and when we get there we're going to have to show up and register and X, Y, and Z thing.
I was going to say that's important to note too. Now, depending on the country, obviously, you can't even really start your process for the Netherlands until you actually live here. So you are allowed 90 days to stay in the country on a U.S. passport without getting a visa. However, you can't actually start that process till you're living here. So you have to do the whole process of finding an apartment, getting the stuff you need from home before you move over. But then once you're here is when you actually step into the office and do your application, which is scary. I mean, it's scary to move to a new country and not know if you're even going to get accepted, but that's where you start.
Yeah, you have to have an address that you're living at that you can register from. That isn't one of the first steps, I think, that our lawyer told us. He's like, well, first thing you have to do is find a place to live.
It's not even what he told us. He said, I will not help you until you have somewhere that you live. Like, it was that serious that he was like, there's nothing I can do for you. He said, I can literally go over all the steps with you, charge you all kinds of money for it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a place to live, I can't even turn in your application. So I'm not going to help you until you've told me, hey, Christian, I found somewhere to live. And
that was the next thing. So, you do one thing and it leads you to the next step. So that was our next step at that point was, okay, we have to get a real estate agent because we were still in the US. So we need somebody who will scout places for us to find us an apartment. We also had planned to go to London because that was the only place that we found at the time where he could go with our dog that would go from from New York to London.
Yes.
I think you had one more option in Italy, but you didn't take it. And the flight was going to be like super far out.
Right.
So we didn't take that option. So London it was. And we didn't want to use up our 90 days of being here.
That was a big scare. We didn't know how long it would take. And so we didn't want to just come over and then be like, oh, well, we're 2 months in the process and we're screwed because we're got to leave the country.
Right. So we're like, okay, you can actually visit the UK, I think, for up to 6 months, just being a tourist. So we were like, we'll do that. So we didn't know how long we were going to stay. We booked another Airbnb house for a month. And we were like, well, we'll maybe move on to another city or another apartment or whatever while we figure out
and that
what
was
we're
our
doing.
plan. We were going to travel all around the UK, and we had like a pattern that we were going to follow and go see these sites. But unfortunately, our plans changed.
I would say that is also something to keep in mind if you're going to do this. Be flexible.
Yes,
you need to be flexible in your plans. They're going to change most likely. I mean, unless you're just a really great, trip planner and you can foresee all these things. But we had our makelaars, our real estate agent here in the Netherlands, looking for apartments, and they went and saw several, and they didn't work out. The housing market is very competitive.
Which you will see a lot of videos if you look at the Netherlands about the housing here and how it's very difficult to get a house here. It is. Little did I know, like their system here, when they put an apartment on the market, it is usually rented by the end of the day. Like it is no joke. So there's no time to wait. So if you see something, you put in an offer the day you see it. So, and unfortunately we weren't here yet. So we had to have the makelaar go ahead and, go visit everything for us. And we even put in a few offers that got turned down, basically. Something, I watched another video and they said this, and it struck me because I was like, that's us, is they thought, well, in the US, we're great residents. Like on paper, we look great. We have tons of money saved up. We have the background of buying and selling houses. We have amazing credit. So we're a top choice. But, then you get over here and the reality is we no longer have jobs. We only have what's in savings. We no longer have a rental anywhere because we haven't owned our home now. And at that point it was 2 months. And so it became very difficult to get a landlord to even want to rent to us because they don't know you from Adam. And they just think, well, why should I rent to you when I could rent to somebody else who has a job and more guaranteed the rent?
They don't use US credit scores here like they do in the US. So that didn't really help us at all. We actually wound up writing them a letter.
We did write them a letter to describe who we were, why we wanted the apartment, which we did fall in love with this apartment, when we saw it. It was one of very few in Amsterdam that actually had a yard space for rent. Very, very few houses here have that. Another thing is single house living is not a thing here. There's no, maybe if you went out to the north somewhere, you might find a single house, but everyone lives in duplexes, triplexes, tall buildings, towers. So you are always connected to other people here, which is very different from us. That's not what we're used to. We've owned houses since our condo back in 2009.
The condo was the only time we ever lived in a sort of shared community. So this is going back to our youth, but it's worth it, and it's what you have to sacrifice to move to a European city.
How bad do you want it?
Right. So, we obviously don't want to live in the middle of nowhere in the Netherlands to have a house that we can afford. So, we want to live in the city. We're going to have to share and have an apartment.
I was going to say, we are city guys. We want movie theaters. We want Broadway theaters.
Stores.
We want people
trains
around, stuff to do. Like we're not
museums.
Well, I say that, but we are sit at home kind of people. But at the same time, we enjoy going out. We enjoy life. And so we don't want to be just stuck in our apartment all the time. So
that is sort of how it went. And we're still waiting on our box to come.
Still waiting.
It'll hopefully be here in a month or 2 months. I don't know. They don't give you a lot of deadlines. They give you, I think, 5 to 10 weeks is their range. And that's once it's left. I'm not even sure. They're not the clearest, but it worked for us.
That's something we didn't even realize till we were here, is there are certain rules even on getting your stuff. So to get our stuff over here, we had to have what's called a BSN. BSN is basically like a social in the US.
A registration number.
And so to get the BSN, though, you have to have a residence, and then you have to go give your biometrics to the government, who takes your face, your fingerprints, all of that, and puts it on file. Then they send you to another place where you have to get a temporary residence sticker in your passport. And that's all while you're still doing the application process. Once you finally get all of that, which for us took almost 2 months, like a month and a half, maybe. Then once you get all of that, then you give them your BSN, and that's when they start the process of the U-Haul. So we still have quite a few weeks till we get that U-Haul.
Yeah, it was a misconception when we were moving that we thought we would go ahead and send the U-Haul over maybe once we found an apartment or something, then we would, when we had the address, then we would get the U-Haul and we'd wind up getting there and get our stuff right after or whatever. Not at all how it happens. We were very misguided on how we thought all this worked. And so we've learned, and that's why, we're telling you, if you ever decide to do this, it doesn't work that way. And you have to go through a lot of hoops. There's a lot of forms. There's a lot of details that you have to have before they will let you, import your things. It can all be done. It just takes time of planning, money,
and a desire. You have to really want this because it's not going to fall into your lap. This is something that you work at. This has been, we've said many times, I don't know how we would have done this if we still had full-time jobs, because doing all of this process and working, while we did it temporarily at the rental house, it was miserable. I spent, 9 to 10 hours working a day. Then when I get off, was taking care of Scarlett and making sure Rhett was okay, and then researching. So there was literally I would research from the moment that I was done taking care of the dogs till the moment I went to bed. And that was every single day. And then on weekends too.
I don't think we really ever hardly left that rental house. We were working and doing our stuff and planning and researching, and that's all we did every day.
You have to know that this is what you want, because this is going, obviously it's going to become your life, but it's going to be your life until it becomes your life. So make sure you're ready for that.
It can be different if you're going to move here with a job, if your company is going to send you, or you already got a job, that's going to sponsor you. That will make everything a lot easier to move over that way. We didn't have that. We knew we didn't want that. And so it's been probably a little more difficult for us to figure out all the details. But any way that you want to do it, you can do it. You will just have to put in the time and the effort and the research and the planning and the money to do it however it is that you want to do it.
Yeah.
Some countries will take you with just money investment. You can buy a house and you can get residency that way in some places.
Right.
So there's all sorts of different ways. If you're older, if you have a pension, if you have Social Security, if you have investments from your 401k or whatever, there are some countries that will let you just do that, where you can basically be a retiree there, as long as you have some sort of income that meets their requirements. So there's a lot of different places and different options. It really just depends on your situation and where you want to be and how you want to do it.
And this worked for us. So
this is what worked for us.
We figured we would share our knowledge. There's still a lot more for us to share to come of stuff that we had to do, but that's the basic highlights of what it took for us to get here and the moving process.
If there's any questions that you have, put them in the comments and we'll answer them for you. If there's other types of videos you want to see from us, let us know. We're always interested to know what everybody wants to see and hear and what your questions are. Make sure to like the video for us. And
comment and subscribe.
We're glad that you're here and that you're watching us, and we hope you've enjoyed it.
And we'll see you soon.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.